For centuries, if you said the word fashion, one city came to mind: Paris. End of story. But then, something started to shift. A whole new empire of style began to rise up from the south, and its weapons weren't armies. They were silk, leather, and this bold, unapologetic vision for a new kind of glamour. This is the incredible story of how Italian fashion went from being a copycat to a global powerhouse.
I mean, it's a wild story. A story of rebellion, of pure genius, and a carefully built brand that became bigger and more powerful than any single designer. So, how on earth did they pull it off? How did Italy convince the entire world to trade in its Parisian classics for that Milanese cool?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. We'll kick things off with the post-war rebellion in Florence. Then we'll jump into the golden age of Milan. After that, we'll really dig into the incredible power behind that Made in Italy label. And finally, we'll look at the big challenges this empire is facing right now. And hey, speaking of which, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell, share and like my videos. The information in this video is compiled from open sources. Thank you.
Okay, so our story starts in the early 1950s. Italy is still putting itself back together after the war, and its role in the world of high fashion was, well, pretty simple. Just copy whatever Paris was doing. You had all these incredibly skilled Italian artisans, right? But they were totally dependent on French trends. They'd basically take Parisian designs and simplify them for the local market. There was no Italian style to speak of, just a bunch of talented craftsmen living in the shadow of a giant. But, and this is key, over in America, shoppers were getting hungry for something new, something less buttoned up than formal couture. They were ready for a change.
So this timeline, it shows this wasn't an accident. It was a plan. This one guy, Giovanni Battista Giorgini, he decided to just change the entire game. In 1951, he gets all these key American buyers to come to Florence, but he gives them one radical rule. Every single piece had to be of pure and exclusive Italian inspiration. It was basically a declaration of fashion independence. And the results? Absolutely explosive. I mean, look at that jump in knitwear exports alone. From around $300,000 to over $30 million. That's not just growth, my friends. That was a full-blown revolution.
In the American press, they completely ate it up. This quote from Life magazine just a year after Giorgini's first show really says it all. All of a sudden, Italian fashion had an identity. It was chic, it was accessible, it was desirable, and it was 100% Italian. The foundation for the empire had officially been laid.
So, the rebellion had started. But to build a real empire, you have to move from the workshop to the world stage. And to do that, Italian fashion needed a brand new capital.
By the time we get to the 1970s, the center of the fashion universe was shifting. Florence was great. It planted the seed of Italian high fashion. But Milan? Milan had the industrial muscle and the media power to unleash ready-to-wear on the world. And this new era was led by two competing and totally brilliant emperors of style.
The whole era was really defined by the creative tension between these two. On one side, you had Giorgio Armani, who just perfectly captured the spirit of the new career woman with these elegant, understated power suits. And on the other side, you had Gianni Versace, who was channeling all the glamour, celebrity, and rock and roll energy of the 80s with pure drama and sex appeal.
You know, this famous saying, it sounds a little bit cheeky, right? But it wasn't meant as an insult. It was actually the perfect way to sum up the two very distinct, very powerful identities they were selling to the world. And together, they proved that Italian fashion wasn't just one thing. It could be both sophisticated and sensual, minimalist, and totally over the top.
But just as Armani and Versace came to define the 80s, the 90s were about to be completely hijacked by another legendary name, a brand that, at the time, was pretty much on the verge of collapse: Gucci.
The speed of this turnaround is just staggering to think about. In 1994, this mostly unknown American designer named Tom Ford takes over. His 1995 fall collection, all those jewel-toned silks and velvet pants, it just electrified the entire fashion world. In just 5 years, a company that was fading away became a multi-billion-dollar global empire. It just proved the immense power of a single, focused creative vision. This incredible success, it wasn't just about making beautiful clothes. It was about strategically turning Made in Italy into one of the most powerful and profitable national brands on the entire planet. 54 billion euros. That's the revenue that Italy's luxury sector generated in the last year alone. Just let that number sink in. It shows you the insane economic scale of this empire of aesthetics.
And what's so fascinating is how diverse this empire really is. We always think of fashion and leather goods, but look at that. Eyewear is nearly half the revenue. That's all thanks to these specialized industrial districts and generations of skilled craftspeople. You add in supercars and luxury yachts, and you start to see this whole machine is built on a reputation for unbelievable quality. And who's the biggest customer for this amazing machine? You guessed it, the United States. 12 billion euros in fashion and accessory exports just last year. This really shows you how critical that American market, the same one Giorgini targeted way back in 1951, still is today.
So this economic power, naturally, it translates into cultural influence. And there's actually a name for this concept: fashion diplomacy. It's the idea that what you wear or what you give as a gift can send a really powerful political message without you having to say a single word.
And we saw a perfect, modern example of this at the recent G7 summit hosted in Italy. The official gifts for all the world leaders, silver cufflinks and leather handbags from a famous Italian brand, that was no accident. That was a deliberate act of statecraft, using fashion to project an image of Italian quality and prestige to the most powerful people on the planet.
But here's the thing. The world that allowed this Italian fashion empire to rise and thrive is changing. And today, the empire is facing a whole new set of challenges that could seriously threaten its dominance.
There are three major headwinds blowing against Made in Italy right now. First, there's this idea of slowbalization, basically the end of easy, rapid global trade. Second, potential US tariffs that could hit their single biggest market really hard. And third, the luxury market in China, which drove so much growth for the last decade, is starting to cool off.
And all of this is happening at the exact same time the entire global market for luxury goods is slowing down. For the first time in years, forecasters are actually predicting a decline. And when the whole pie is shrinking, you can bet the competition for every single customer gets a whole lot fiercer. So from a small rebellion in Florence to the emperors of style in Milan, the Italian fashion empire was built on this incredible mix of art, craftsmanship, and just brilliant marketing. But in a world that's faster, more fragmented, and a lot more economically uncertain, is that legacy really enough to guarantee its future? Well, that's a story that's still being written.